Right. For this video, I want to talk about optimizing revenue or optimizing profit, and we'll see in a moment that those are can be slightly different things. And so we're going to talk about completing the square. We're going to look at this graphically and then kind of work through the algebra of it, and then we'll go from there. So notice I have a few different equations here. In red, I have my price equation. It's linear. See, I have my slope, and it's in point slope form. And then in my revenue equation, notice my revenue is equal to my price, which is a function, in this case, a function of x being the number of units that I sell, times, so revenue is the price per unit times the number of units. So revenue is how much money I'm bringing in. Then I also have a cost function. This again is linear, noted in green. So in my cost function, I have cost being 500 plus 12 times the number of units that I sell. And then I have my profit, which is my revenue minus whatever cost I incur. So as you can see, if my profit is in purple and my revenue is in blue, you can note that I'm going to max out my profit in a different place than I max out my revenue. So depending on what the question asks, I'll have a different answer. So we're going to work through both of those questions. Given this price equation and the cost equation, what is my maximum revenue and what is my maximum profit? So we're going to go through that algebraically now. Okay, so I defined my terms. I've got big R is defined as the dollars of revenue, X is defined as the units sold, little p is defined as the price of each unit in dollars, and then of course I know that my revenue is equal to my number of units times the price per unit. So now I'm going to use that price per unit from the previous graph. So I have this equation here. So I'm going to multiply that out. I simplify here, I get negative 1/6. So now I can distribute negative 1/6 times negative 30 is 5. So 5 plus 40 is 45. Then I'm going to go ahead and distribute my x. And now I'm going to start the process of completing the square. Now the reason I do that is because in the completed square form, it gives me my vertex, and the vertex is going to be when you have a quadratic equation, your parabola, the vertex of your parabola is either your local max or your local min. Now, as we see, our parabola here has a negative leading coefficient. That means it's going to be open down, which is what we saw in the graph. And so it's going to be a local maximum. So now when I pull out my negative 1/6, I have x squared, and then if I pull out a negative 1/6 from 45, I get negative 270. Now this is the part where I complete the square. I cut this term in half and then square it, and that's the bit that I add to complete the square. That's the part that was missing. Now if I change the value of my expression, I have to offset it in some way. So because this is inside these set of parentheses, this 135 squared has been multiplied by negative 1/6. So then, since it's being multiplied by negative 1/6, I basically subtracted a certain amount that now I'm adding back on 135 squared over 6. So I chose that particular number so that I could put it into this squared form. where I have x minus 135 and that quantity is squared. And then that's going to give me my vertex. So I have my x value, that was my number of units, and then I have the y value, or in this case the r value, which is my max revenue. And we can see that value there. Now I'm going to look at maximizing the profit. So big P is going to be defined as my dollars of profit, and C is going to be defined as my dollars of cost. And so my profit is equal to my revenue, the money coming in minus the money going out. So I started with my revenue from my simplified form right here. That was the most simple form I could see. And then I subtracted my cost. Now notice I'm subtracting all of this, so I need to put it in parentheses or brackets. And then as I distribute, I have this simplified form. And like I did over here, I'm going to pull out the negative 1/6. So I have a negative 1/6 pulled out. So that moves from 33x to negative 198x. I don't really need to worry about this 500. I don't have to pull it out, so I keep it outside of the parentheses so that I don't have to deal with the negative 1/6. And then I complete the square. I cut this in half, square it, so I get 99 squared. And since that was multiplied by negative 1/6, then I'm going to have to offset that by multiplying 99 squared by a positive 1/6 here. And then I put it into my squared form, and I get my vertex where my x value is 99, and my profit now is just over 1133. And we can see that here with these values that we saw before. 135, that was where my revenue was, and 99 for my profit.